Okay, you guys ready? Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the April Service Committee meeting. Bob, would you please call roll?
Call your name. Will you please indicate your attendance? Director Stinson? Here. Director Quick?
Present.
Director Gardner?
Present.
We have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Bob. Now let's get started with today's meeting to provide information items. Information item I1 is a presentation on ride safe enhancement updates by our Chief Operating Officer.
Good morning, directors. Aaron Vogel, Chief Operating Officer for Indigo. Today, I will discuss ride safe enhancements. It's 5 key themes, how we got here, some potential data to track and measure success on ride safe, as well as progress made since our February service committee meeting. First, just to recap, next slide. Our 5 key themes are: 1, our See Something, Say Something campaign; 2, proactive camera and video surveillance; 3, law enforcement introduction to the senior leadership team here at Indigo; 4, our zero tolerance approach to passenger misconduct; and 5, better understanding existing laws and that are impacting employees and rider safety, and exploring opportunities to modify and enhance new protections. Ride safe enhancements is essentially a direct result of 4 driving forces. 1 is from the CEO strategic plan, or our strategic plan, and some listening sessions that were conducted in 2024 when she was on board. And those involved listening sessions with the board of directors, elected officials, senior staff members at Indigo, as well as the union. And that was really the driving force for the Indigo strategic plan, which is improving frontline worker safety, increasing ridership, and fiscal sustainability. And so the ride safe is really just kind of the under part of the umbrella of the frontline worker safety strategic plan. And this is kind of the playbook to kind of drive that strategic plan and getting some results. The second driving force that's prompting ride safe here is the customer perception survey that was conducted in 2023 and 2024. The third driving force is the employee safety perception survey that we took in 2024. And then the fourth driving force is the Federal Transit Administration's push on safety, particularly tracking assaults and reducing assaults and monitoring those better, as well as some internal data trends that we have collected over the last couple of years. And so I want to start with today's presentation, diving deep into the data. Last time we talked a little bit more about some key components of Ride Safe, some of our playbook and initiatives. I want to share the why and some data as how we got here, and then how we look to measure success over this year and next year as well. So first off, starting with our customer perception survey in 2023 and 2024, we conducted this and we took surveys of passengers. Last year, we were able to obtain over 850 surveys from passengers, and 80% of the passengers that were interviewed through these surveys presented that they felt safe riding Indigo, as well as waiting for buses at the stops and shelters along the way. Next slide. Majority of the respondents said that they did not feel harassed while using our services, particularly being on the bus. However, 19 to 20% of the respondents did share that they felt harassed either every trip themselves or witnessed others being harassed. Now, I do want to put in context that harassment was not defined, and this was left for interpretation for the surveyor. Next slide.
Hey, Aaron.
Yes.
Do we have kind of a definition that we define in terms of harassment? Do we have one?
We do not. We just started this process in 2023. It's one of the things that we talk internally about, how to better define that. And then And we don't want to define it as well, because everyone's interpretation of harassment and safety is completely different as well. So we had a good question. We want to make sure that put into perspective because it is subjective.
Aaron, can we see that in more routes over another in regards to the 19 to 20%?
I would say anecdotally, we see that more with our BRT services, more passengers, more movement. The next slide here, 69% of, let's go back, 69% of the respondents report, I appreciate you trying to keep me moving forward though. We have a lot to discuss today. Of those that reported to the survey, 69% reported that they did not feel harassed. However, 15% of the respondents felt that they've experienced some sort of verbal threat at some point in their time being transported with Indigo, and fewer than 10% reported experienced sexual, racial, or physical harassment. Again, this is not defined. And I do want to highlight that of the data points that you see to the right on the bar graphs that are for data that's not of someone being harassed, there was an opportunity for respondents to check more than one box. So one person could have said they felt sexually, racially, ethically, and or harassed with disabilities. So just to put that in context as well. This is kind of, there was many questions asked during the customer perception survey, but these are the three that we wanted to highlight that relate to safety and well-being on our services that we want to continue to monitor as we make improvements with our Ride Safe initiatives. Next slide. This one is related to our employee survey that we conducted in 2024. We had over 160 respondents. Particularly just operators essentially for the most part, which is over a third of our workforce that responded, which is really exciting for these results. And I want to start with the graph that you see on your right here. So collectively between very safe and somewhat safe, 40% of the coach operators feel that the professional coach operator experience is safe in general, and that 30% going to the left here, 30% either agree or strongly agree that Indigo has implemented several various safety tools and measures to promote safety and well-being in terms of safety as an employee at Indigo, particularly an operator. So again, this is kind of a benchmark for us to track as we go forward here. This is the first time, in 2024 was the first time we ever done anything like this to really quantify their perception. And so this is again, I mentioned this is 2 of the 4 driving forces that prompted Ride Safe. So I'm going to pause right here before we go into some more data-driven graphs and see if there's any questions about the employee or customer perception surveys that were conducted.
Aaron, all 160 of those respondents are operators?
Yes.
Just speaking your mind.
And training staff that also work as operators as well.
Aaron, I just want to say I'm really glad that we're doing we've added this component to it and we're starting to track it. It's going to be interesting to see how this moves based on the kind of multi-pronged effort that you've laid out.
Excellent. Yeah, we're definitely excited to see the results here as we move forward, because I think there's a lot of emphasis and energy on working to improve these areas. And this is really just our kind of our baseline we want to establish here as we move forward. So
A little eye-opening.
it really is, yes. Next slide. Now we're going to start to get in some more deeper quantitative information that really focuses on our approach towards zero tolerance, towards passenger misconduct. And this is all data that we've been collecting over the years, but this first one I'll start with, which is our assaults on employees here at Indigo. And this is a new KPI. Well, it's not a new KPI, but it's a more emphasized and tracked KPI thanks to the Federal Transit Administration's push for protecting frontline workers. And what they've done is they've changed the definition of assaults in 2023, and the actual specific definition is on your screen, but in layman's terms, I want to share that it's basically a verbal or a nonverbal action against an employee that impacts one's ability to provide revenue service and to continue the work is really what an assault would be. And so in 2023, when the definition was changed mid-year, we had a total of 17 assaults tracked. In 2024 with that new definition for a full 12 months. It was 39, so it's pretty significant increase. And this is something that we track by mode as well as by employee. So we see not only operator assaults, but fare inspectors being assaulted as well as transit supervisors as well. So that's all combined in that raw data. And we can break that out further and we'll talk about more about that over the year.
And Aaron, was the previous definition, did it exclude the verbal piece? Was that?
Physical,
Physical?
yes, yep,
Okay.
yep. So even like a spat is included, that was not included before. Which honestly is a good portion of our assaults is nonverbal. Doesn't make it right, but that does, is important to highlight that one.
Aaron, how is a circumstance reported?
Say that again?
How is a circumstance reported?
It's reported by the employee. So if an employee would like, are you asking, is the question, how are we finding out if there was an actual assault? Employees are happy, not happy. They are more than willing to share that they've been wronged and they will come forward and we will take that information and we will complete an occurrence report. And we also witness it as well, if it's happening like at our transit centers.
Aaron, real quick, do we have data on how often the assaults result in a disruption of the service?
Every single one of those assaults disrupt service. Yep. That's one of the driving factors to determine assaults, if it impacts revenue service and their ability to continue and perform their job duties. Keep moving right along here. Next slide. So now we're going to go into a series of charts that I want to just give some background on how I'm going to go through the data so you can kind of follow along a little better. The flat lines that you see on the graphs going forward are the 2023 flat line and kind of the average, if you will. And I'm going to reference that as kind of a baseline, and I'm going to reference the numbers as monthly totals. And then I will also reference the 2024 numbers to see if we're going up or down, to see what kind of movement there are. In most cases, we're going up in numbers. For this particular data set here, we have our calls for police help for our contracted law enforcement services. In 2023, our average was about 20 calls on the fixed route services per a month. And in 2024, we were averaging about 35 for calls to law enforcement. Now, these are raw numbers across the system, regardless of passengers. For the next data set that you see in graph here is related to calls for police support with our law enforcement officers related to BRT. In 2023, our average monthly calls was about 200 calls. And in 2024, about 300 calls. You can see very busy with BRT. Over 10% of system-wide boardings and ridership is just on BRT. So I want to put that in perspective. And because of that, that takes us to our next slide, which is something that we see in how data is tracked across the industry. And that is raw data based on 100,000 passengers or 100,000 boardings and riders, essentially. So that way you can put in context the information based on passenger movement. And so when you look at it from 100,000 passengers, in 2023, fixed route police calls was about 3 calls for every 100,000 boardings. And then in 2024, we had about 3.5 on average calls for police support. Next slide. For BRT in 2023, it was about 40 calls. And in 2024, about 50. Now, there's a lot of factors that go into this. One is we obviously want to take a zero tolerance approach to behaviors, but also we have increased our resources available in 2024, which increases our overall ability to receive these calls and respond to those calls that we get. And the calls can come in from a plethora of different avenues, such as supervisors calling in, operators calling in, and fare inspectors calling in, or dispatch. Next slide. Of all the calls that come in, some of them turn into criminal activity. And on average, in 2023, 35 events took place per month on average that turn into criminal activities. And in 2024, we averaged about 50 criminal activities per month. And these activities are labeled in bullet 2 here, which can be loitering, panhandling, alcohol related, trespassing, narcotics related, and disruptions. And majority, hands down, is all loitering for the most part. That's the majority of that that we experience here. Next slide. And of the calls and response that we have to the passengers, either on the bus or on the platforms, on average in 2023, we actually had to trespass on average one person a month for 100,000 boardings. And then in 2024, we averaged pretty much the same with about one passenger trespassed a month in 2024. Next slide.
How would you, maybe not define, but describe trespass?
I'm going to actually ask one of our subject matter experts to define that one a little bit more. Mark, if you could maybe explain that one a little bit more. He works with the court system, and there's a whole back end process involved there. We don't really want to do that, but and I would just say we also ban people, which is saying you can't use our service for the rest of the service day, which has a lot of fluidity to it, but trespass is more of a formal process, and you can get trespassed for a good amount of time. So I'm going to defer that one to Mark.
Good morning, board. Mark Emmons. It's green.
Yep.
I was like, I'll get a little bit louder. No. Good morning, Mark Emmons, Director of Life Safety and Security of the Indigo. So trespassing, what happens with that? Just give you I'll give you the 15,000 foot view. Something happens, I'll just use the CTC, for example. Something happens, an operator will call over security. Security will try to work with the individual that they're calling on. If that person escalates that to the next level, that it may require an LEO to come in, which is a law enforcement officer. They will then call them over. And if it's bad enough that law enforcement has to take action, which means they have to detain them for some reason, then they will look at what the situation was. And if it was bad enough that it caused a criminal act, they'll bring them back and they detain them while they get their information. And they also run them through IMPD's criminal record database. And most of the time, what you're going to find is the trespasses we get is either they've assaulted somebody or there's been another criminal act, or you'll find that most of the time, the people that are getting arrested and put on trespass are wanted for warrants. And so it's not that Indigo is going out looking for these people to arrest them. It's that I will say, they arrest themselves. So when the criminal record check is done and they find that they wanted for a warrant, they get arrested. And so with that, we issue a trespass, which is good for 1 year from the date of issue. But that person can also appeal the trespass form. It's on the back of the form. So if they don't agree with it, they can appeal it and it goes to Alitra Edison, my manager. Or if it goes to court, the judge, as part of the ruling, can uphold the trespass, or they can either limit the trespass to less than 360 days.
So it stays within Indigo until an appeal?
Well, actually, once a trespass goes in, it also goes in under IMPD's database. So if somebody was to be pulled them up on record, it would show that they have a trespass at Indigo. And if they're found trespassing again, and then it becomes a criminal trespass and they can be arrested again. And we do keep a record of those so that we can, the supervisors, we're starting a new process as well, that the supervisors on a thing called Track It on their iPads, they can pull up that trespass list and see whoever's on trespass, and then they can take care of it that way much faster.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a good segue to the next slide, actually. He kind of touched on it a little bit, which was the arrest. We're not seeking and going after arrests. People are kind of arresting themselves, and a lot of times it's, we're dealing with the interactions, getting their ID, and a lot of times they have warrants and they get themselves arrested, essentially. And so when you look at it from a data perspective on 100,000 boardings in 2023, we averaged about 0.2 of a point for 0.2 individuals arrested per month on average per 100,000 boardings. And in 2024, we actually saw that number cut in half to 0.1, which is good to see. Next slide. So we are holding people accountable. We're trying to do the best we can with our zero tolerance approach to not allowing inappropriate behavior on our system. The next one I would like to highlight is our visual fare inspections that we conduct on our system, particularly BRT. In 2024, on average, the flat line represents about 4,000 visual fare inspections that took place over 2023. And in 2024, that has jumped well over 10,000 visual inspections annually, particularly as we emphasize and improve our emphasis on inspection and our focus on what the fare inspectors do during their 8-hour shifts, such as inspecting versus doing quality assurance checks on the stations and the buses. And then also we launched the Purple Line last year. And so with that came increased headcount for our second BRT line. So our budgeted headcount almost doubled, which is why you see the significant spike in June to July. Even though the service started in October, we started preparing, training, and hiring in the summer of 2024. So that resulted in this spike. So this is going to be something I know our chief financial officer is also very interested in tracking and monitoring this on a regular basis, and we will continue to bring this forward to this committee. Next slide. Even more interesting with the fare inspection is the behavior that we see of passengers and of the visual inspections. What this notes is about, from a percentage perspective, about 25% of the people are not presenting a fare when asked to present a fare. And what's really interesting with this data set here is of over half of them in 2023, predominantly most of them would either pay their fare or they would essentially pay their fare once we were told them, hey, you can't ride our service without a fare. They would actively go and do that, which is the results we want to see. We want to collect the fare, make sure they're doing the right thing. In 2024, if you look at the red line, that is actually showing a flip-flop where more people, now that we have more inspectors out there and more time has passed, people are more likely to just not ride the service than pay the fare. So they are getting essentially a warning or a notification like you're not doing what you're supposed to do, essentially. And so hopefully in the future, we'll have a fair ordinance where we can actually have some repercussions for that. But right now, this is what we're tracking. This is the behaviors that we're seeing with the visual fare inspections, which is quite telling. Yes.
Aaron, just to also be clear, is there anything different or new that we've done in terms of our training of our fare inspectors? Are we kind of keeping up on that training? Are they?
We've adjusted training a couple times. Last year, we emphasized more of inspections of fares versus having them use the line and doing quality assurance, right? So some of the fare inspectors, because they're at the platforms, they would hit the emergency call box, make sure they're working, make sure the fare inspector the fair equipment is working, right? Treasury's only got so many staff. They're not out in the field. These folks are in the field. So they're checking all of those technology devices and reporting that. We tried to minimize that a little bit more, focus more on inspection requirements. This particular year, I'm asking our team to focus more on platform checks versus randomized zone checking. Because the randomized zone checking was really a process that was put in place, assuming that we would be able to do citations, and we didn't want to disproportionately target any groups on the line. And so because we're not doing that, I've asked them to focus more on doing platforms and inspections across the entire line versus randomized zones across the line. So with that will come more presence in the network. And then we've also changed our philosophy last year. I believe it was last year where we went from 1 to 2 inspectors, go back to and strengthen numbers. And then going forward this year, I think there's going to be a huge focus on modifying it even further. In fact, that's actually my ending slide, as I wanted to tee it up that I think our next meeting is really going to focus on what the fair inspectors do, what the look and feel is, and what their process is going forward in the future. Because I think there's opportunities to do campaigns and blitzes above and beyond just having 1 or 2 inspectors out there. Because it's difficult to inspect the full bus of 20, 30 people when you have 1 or 2 people trying to do that in like a matter of seconds sometimes. So
You're reading my mind in terms of where we're going.
a
'cause
lot
I
of
was thinking
growth
about the
opportunities is
fair
what I'd leave it
inspectors.
at.
I'm glad we're going to do a focused kind of effort on that topic.
Excellent.
In regards to when an operator, excuse me, or a fair inspector calls in for assistance, is there data related to the average amount of time it takes for someone to physically get out to the location to assist?
There is, it would have to be tracked. It's tracked, definitely, and it's also individualized because they could be at different locations throughout the city and their response requirements are completely different. If it's an emergency, they'll hit the 2-way call box just like a passenger would, and they'll get 911 or our central control, which connects to 911 services. And so they'll get the first immediate response they can get, whether it's our law enforcement officer or IMPD or EMS. The next and last slide of data is some success that I want to highlight with our recently hired social service coordinator that started in October. And this is some of the return on investment and their in-field or out in the field work that they're doing in terms of contacting passengers on our system and trying to get them the resources they need that might not be, transportation essentially. And on average, I'll just highlight the month of January, our social service coordinator, which is Ward, who is not here today, but contacted over 40 individuals. Of those 40, 27 of them accepted and took referrals that we gave them to get additional assistance. And I do have one success story last month that I would highlight where an individual was referred for substance abuse detox. And this individual that took this referral actually contacted the coordinator back, thanked him for his referral, and self-reported that they are in detox and working through that. So that was a huge success that I wanted to highlight for this. And thank you for the support for this position because it's invaluable in so many ways. And so this is something that we want to track going forward with this new position. We're open to more feedback as we establish some baseline metrics. This is kind of close out some of the metrics that we thought would help define success. There's so much more data that we track. Some of it might not make sense, but we're open to feedback from the committee regarding some of the key performance indicators. So at that, I will pause, just see if there's any additional comments or questions.
Thanks, Aaron. Any questions or comments?
Okay. Next slide. I'm almost done. So just kind of recapping of some of the progress we made since our February meeting on some of the 5 key themes here. One of them was the See Something, Say Something campaign. We now have it soft launched and active on our website, and as well as taking the reports in through the new security system. So it's separate from our customer comments process, and it is being monitored 24/7, which was a new and enhanced process in this. We are not getting a whole lot of increase volume than we were before, but it is part of our change, and we're still collecting the data. So still early to tell because we soft launched it. We're up next is we're going to start to get more physical marketing material. And what you see on your screen here is some snippets of what some of the material looks like.
And Aaron, you said we have 24/7 monitoring, and I noticed on the website there is a call number. Someone's monitoring that phone number?
The call number comes in through customer service and through kind of similar banking hours, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. And after hours, both reporting online through the QR code or through the phone system, it will go through our security desk, and they'll only take emergency type calls. Yep.
And this may be better directed at Carrie. Just what will the full launch of the campaign look like? I noticed web, social media cards. Will we?
Well, I can speak to it a little bit and then maybe
Yep.
chime in if you want, Carrie. So right now, the website is launched, so there's its own page saying we want to see something, say something, and it explains the types of different things that that you should report. We also have it as a banner on the front page of the website in case you're not searching it. We are currently, the public affairs team is working on campaigns on social media, just reminding people to be a part of the See Something, Say Something campaign and that we're all in this together. It takes a village to work through all this, and we need and seek other people's feedback. So I know I've seen some campaigns with Mr. Avocado referencing the See Something, Say Something campaigns. And I know up next, we're going to be putting in some car cards, which are the printouted materials are like 20 inches by 10 inches that go inside of the buses to educate people. So the passengers see this while they're in the bus. And then also having the QR code so people could scan that as well conveniently on the bus to report things that they might not want to call in on because there could be a criminal activity happening on the bus. And so that would be kind of awkward to make that call when something's happening next to you. They could confidently and discreetly report that. Hopefully, I represented public affairs.
I was going to say that was pretty good for not being.
Did you mention the announcements? So we have announcements playing at the CTC and on all of our buses as well. We also launched those announcements at our BRT platform stations to run every 30 minutes or so to remind people audibly as well.
Awesome. Thank you. And then I noticed that like homelessness was another kind of issue that was called out. We've got kind of a process in place to route or to kind of manage.
We do. It wouldn't come through a See Something, Say Something. If it did and they categorized it incorrectly, we would take the information, we respond it. And that's actually where we would partner with our social services coordinator for that one.
Okay.
That would be our first line of defense.
Cool. Okay. Any other questions at this point? You're good? All right.
Next slide. The next theme was proactive security and video surveillance. We have now modified some of our scope with our security contract where we moved some of the fare inspectors over to our central control units to be able to monitor video camera in real time. And they are staffed in the dispatch center as a pilot 7 days a week during certain hours. And so far, the results have been good in partnering with dispatch to really focus on the behaviors that we're having specifically at the stations. That's where this proactive surveillance is taking place. And the results have been an increase of calls essentially for loitering and a lot of smoking reports. And so what's going to happen with this activity is you're going to see in some of our KPIs, particularly for calls, they're going to end up going up because of this. So it will take some time before that plateaus, but it's directly related to the fact that we see something, we're going to say something, we're not going to tolerate inappropriate behavior and unwanted behavior and long lingering and loitering happening at our platforms. Nothing more on that one there. Next slide. In terms of zero tolerance, some of the other things that we've been working on is expanding our de-escalation training, where over 100 staff members went through an 8-hour crisis awareness and de-escalation training program, which you're going to hear a little bit more about today from our Director of Risk and Safety, who spearheaded that. And then I would also like to highlight, we have put on notices onto our buses for assaults or a crime for Indigo employees, reminding folks to behave well, don't do it. And those stickers will end up going, if you look at the photo in the upper right corner, the stickers will go on the bottom left of the door barriers that you see. We had an issue with the printout of the sticker, so it was actually not done. It was supposed to be done before today's meeting. We had a little bit of an issue that will be done in the next couple of days here. But at the time of preparing this presentation, it was planned to have all 200 vehicles installed with this sticker. Last month or last meeting I reported on our very first bus that had the camera display monitor above the driver. We had one bus pilot it. We now are up to about 15 buses. So we're continuing to expand that pilot. So far, the feedback has been very well from the operators. And then the last two bullets are related to fair inspections, which we're going to talk a little bit more about going forward. 2 more slides. Next slide. The next one I'll emphasize, key themes, was about adding law enforcement to senior leadership. Our recruitment is underway for a Senior Director of Security Enforcement. We're targeting and onboarding for that position later this month. We continue to meet with our partners throughout the community to collaborate together to work on safety and security. And then, as I mentioned, we're going to come back to the committee. We can go to the next slide. In June, if not sooner, if the committee is willing to, and really talk more about fair inspectors and what Fair Inspectors 2.0 might look like. And what their look and feel would look like. We did a survey internally to start the discussion of how we might be able to modify and make them more effective. And so I plan to present what the survey results internally are to the committee in June. And this is really the survey was targeted to find ways to help prevent fair evasion, ensure fair collection, as well as improving safety at the same time. And then the survey questions were really focused on, do inspections need to take place on the bus versus the station? What size of inspection team should exist? And what's the naming convention for fair inspectors to improve the overall safety and well-being of our system? And then what's the look and feel look like? So that is something I just wanted to tee up for next service committee meeting. That will likely be the majority of the discussion. So with that, I conclude my informational item. There's no action required today. This is more for information and for discussion today. Happy to hear any additional comments or feedback.
Yep. One additional comment from me, Aaron. I just want to make sure that I'm kind of clear on like job roles and duties. And I know Brian is our Director of Risk and Safety. And so this Senior Director of Security and Enforcement, just help me understand kind of the high level in terms of roles and responsibilities.
Yeah, so safety and security is completely split in our organization. I mean, everyone's job is safety and security in general, but in terms of a job classification, safety is more about risk, insurance, knowing and planning and mitigating planned unsafe things that happen, like, you don't walk underneath a ladder type thing, that's bad. Or if you are on a ladder, you should have someone hold it. You already know those types of things are unsafe acts. And security is more about unpredictable acts against physical harm from other individuals, not from task, essentially, if you will. And with security also comes enforcement as well. There's no enforcement with safety outside of in like the employee handbook, if you will. Hopefully that helps.
No,
put some
that was good.
context on that.
That was good. Thank you. There are no other comments or questions for Aaron. We will move on to information item I3, which is an update on our BRT Service Management Enhancement Initiative presented by our manager of BRT Transportation.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
My name is Michael Dixon. I'm the BRT manager with Indigo. And today I will be talking about some successes and challenges that we have faced on the BRT line. So in April of 2024, I was offered the opportunity to interim manage the BRT pilot program that would address critical issues with the lines to assure that we were aligned with Indigo's mission to connect our community to economic and cultural opportunities through safe, reliable, and accessible experiences. The objective was to establish a seamlessly connected BRT system, ensuring smoother transitions for passengers and improved operations. We wanted to focus on things like station functionality and appearance for our customers, improving operator docking techniques to reduce platform accidents and customer injuries between the bus and platform, improve charging efficiency to maximize the time our battery electric buses spend on the road servicing our customers, improving our on-time performance to maintain and understand proper schedules, address customer complaints, and be able to report general safety concerns in real time. Next slide. So what we're looking for, BRT supervisors are in the field on foot, customer facing. They check platforms to assure functionality and appearance is correct for our customers. If there are issues, supervisors then report and assign the task to appropriate teams in real time to be addressed. Those teams will be facilities, our CVT department, IT, and then treasury for our fare boxes, things of that nature. Some of the biggest issues that we were finding were things like overflowing trash, stations requiring cleaning, graffiti, biohazards, and littering. And one of the bigger problems that we've seen would be loitering with non-passengers throughout the line. So that's where kind of Aaron was talking about with our fare inspectors and our BRT supervisors as well, kind of monitoring that on hand, riding the buses, checking platforms, and making the appropriate calls to authorities when needed. So with that, weekly, we perform ride-alongs with our operators that may be having issues to learn the challenges that they are encountering with proper docking, departing time points on time, and on-time performance in general. We then offer aid and assistance to help reach our 90% or better goal. So with our docking accuracy, on-time performance, and just making sure that everyone is departing on time for our customers. So when it comes to docking, we did do some work where it came to that. So we began observing operators, docking techniques, and assisting the operators, trying to be within 6 inches of the threshold between the door and the actual, the platform and the actual bus itself. So we began by not engaging the operators or coaching them, so we can just kind of get a baseline percentage of how they were doing. So as you see, when we started out between April and May, had about 724 assessments, and about 210 of those were outside of that range of the 6 inches. So that was about 71% of compliance. We then began coaching, actually getting on the buses, and coaching operators and just helping them understand the importance of being close for safety reasons, the importance of proper docking. By August, we were at 96% compliance, and we have maintained that standard to date.
Hey, Mikhail,
Yes.
is a part of the challenge, because I've, is there a concern about just the
Hitting the platform.
accidents and
Yes, sir.
injuring the bus?
That's exactly
That kind
what
of
it
the
is.
biggest driver for our drivers.
That's most definitely what it is. So most of them, yeah, it'd just be the nervousness of actually, making contact with the platform. So that's where, training comes in.
Has the rub, what did we call it?
Rub
Rub rail? Has the rub rail helped
Yes,
in
sir.
that?
Yes, sir.
I'm getting the thumbs up on the,
Yes,
okay.
sir. And I'll actually talk about that in our next slide.
Okay.
Deals with our current efforts in preventable accidents. So in 2023, as you can see, we tried to start focusing on with operators that have less than a year of service as far as where training is concerned. And in 2023, we had 14 of 23 docking preventable accidents were involved or caused with operators that had less than a year of service. And then another key point to point out is that 6 incidents were falls between the station and the bus itself. So in 2024, we had 12 of 25 preventables had employees less than 2 years of service. I'm sorry, less than 1 year of service, and 2 incidents of falls between the bus and the station. So that was a 67% decrease in accidents between the falls between the bus and the station. All right, talking about on-time performance. So we have been working closely with the planning department since I began in April to identify some issues that and make improvements each pick. For instance, we noticed a time issue that we were having between the CTC and the 6410 College Charging Station. We noticed that operators did not have enough time, which was affecting the departures and the ability to get sufficient charge at the end of the line. So time was added to that section of run, and we noticed pretty good improvement. So looking at the pick of June 2024 to October 24, we're at about 66% on time for the red line. Then when we moved to the next pick and we started our purple line launch, so from October 13th through February 8th, we did increase with red line to 79% on time, and the purple line started out at a good 81%. Current pick, we're at about 80% with the red line, and the purple line has made a massive jump there to 87% on-time performance. We did make some improvements, we think, for the next pick as well. So we're looking to try to, smash that 90% goal. I think Aaron promised me a steak dinner if we make it. So
It's on the record, noted.
talking about Ruth Chris too. So our on-time performance, we do conduct onboard ride checks to the operators on docking and on-time performance. We monitor CAD accuracy in addressing early departures and late arrivals, addressing operators who are continuously running late and logging that information for future reference. And we utilize Swiftly and Avail for real-time performance monitoring. So our supervisors, while they're in the vehicles, as well as dispatch, will kind of watch the Avail and Swiftly. They do notice that an operator is, either running massively behind or running early. We'll call them and explain to them, hey, let's slow up, wait a second. If they're running behind more than 10 minutes, we ask that they all call in, give a reason for their lateness. And if we can, we'll send a supervisor to go, maybe catch them at the end of the line, see what we can do to help them. All right. So, and also coaching operators on early departures when applicable. So at the beginning of this pick, I will say our purple line, I think, was hitting like 6% early, right? So we, had to kind of go out with our supervisors, monitor that and give a little instruction to some operators. And I believe we're down around 2-3% now. So that's been helping out a lot. All right, so charging data. So we also monitor the end of the lines for the charging stations. Supervisors monitor charging stations to assist operators with proper alignment, making sure the correct procedures are being applied, like applying the parking brake, kneeling the bus. We have some operators that have really become really invested in their charging at the charging stations. We've got a couple that are kind of competing at this point in time to see who can get the highest charging rate out of their momentum reader, right? So I get pictures very often, some pretty successful stories, and we're proud of that. So some of the challenges that we faced during this pilot program up to date will be, of course, the late arrivals and departures. We talked about BRT accidents, especially the platforms, and some equipment issues that we've had with inductive charging, which they are looking at now. I believe our inductive EV team is in this week. We have seen some improvements, especially at the CTC and Fort Harrison, and we've got a little work to do at 6410, but they're working on it. Some of the successes I'm more happy to report is our docking, discovering and reporting and fixing issues found on the platforms in real time. And I especially like our operator engagement. Our supervisors do an excellent job out engaging with the operators, riding with them and encouraging them. And I do thank them every day for that. So what's next? Our next goals are to achieve the 90% or on better on-time performance. We're looking to do that within the next 3 to 6 months. Promptly respond to customer complaints, ensure operator comfort with the BYD buses, perform BRT platform checks for real-time validation, maintain BRT station functionality and appearance for our customers, improve docking accuracy by performing on-board ride checks with BRT operators to prevent falls, station strikes, and accidents, assist operators on proper docking techniques and discuss on-time performances during the ride checks, ensure proper inductive charging, and report safety concerns in real time. That concludes my presentation. I'll pause
Thank-
now for any questions.
Thank you.
Do you define late?
For us, again, 10 minutes or more would be excessively late, right? We understand that things happen, especially like rush hour traffic. You have, you may have 88 passengers, things of that nature. So late for us is more than 10 minutes. That's when the operator would need to call into the radio room, kind of give the reason of why, and then that way we can see what we can do to help.
Okay. But then
This
does
is-
that, I mean, help me understand,
Yes, sir.
from station to station to station, if I was 12 minutes late, would that be 1 time or 3 times?
I want to chime in here just real quick because there's 2 different things. Mikkel is mentioning the procedure for the operators. If they're excessively late, which is 10 minutes or more, they're required by policy to call in to basically explain themselves what's going on, because we need to get to the bottom of that and try to address that in the future or that day of and recover service. But in terms of data analytics and time points, our on-time performance is 59 seconds prior to the time point is acceptable, because there's always debate on times on someone's clock, right? And then up to 4 minutes and 59 seconds late. So if a time point was at 10 o'clock, the bus could show up at 9:59 in 1 second, all the way to 10 o'clock, the 10th hour and 4th minute, and it would still be on time. Okay. Now, if it was 10 o'clock, the 10th hour and 5 minutes, it would be calculated as late. So when we start talking about data analytics on our reports here, that's late at that point, 5 minutes past that time point. Specific to your question about time points, not every stop has its time point, because there's no ability to be fluid in our service changes, right? On our routing, as well as letting the operator to move forward and backward based on, progress effectively or slow down effectively when there's traffic or not traffic, depending on the time of the day. So a typical route, let's say route 8 currently, which will be the future Blue Line, 30 plus 50 probably stops and bus stops. but actual time points is typically around 6 to 7. And so those are the ones, those time points are defined by a specific time where we would track if it's on time. Now, from a passenger planning perspective, if you're at a stop after that time point, you know you need to go to that, basically need to be at the stop to the correlating time point right before that, if that makes sense. And then for our BRT lines, we have very, very few time points because we want to keep the buses moving as fast as possible, right? Whether there's passengers or not. Because what happens is on the red line, we have 5 time points, both end of the lines, transit center, and then 1 spot in between on each end of the line. When you start introducing more times points on times when there's no congestion, you're running early and you can't plan your trip and your travels very effectively if the bus is running early. And so literally we instruct the operators to pull over and sit there. That's not a de-escalating type situation with a passenger that wants to get to work on time. So it's a balancing act, but we have time points only at specific key transfer spots and key points along the line.
Thank you.
For the, I'm sure that at times weather conditions play some role in it. Do we have data that speaks to how often weather conditions contribute to the late arrivals?
Data, I'm sorry, I don't have that data. But I can say just like the last storm that we had, it did impact service a lot, especially like the flooding, the streets that had high water. So yeah, it does affect definitely traffic in that sense with weather. Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? I think we're good.
Thank
Thank you, Miguel. All right, next up is information item I4, is an update on our paratransit operations and maintenance transition by our Deputy Chief Transportation Officer.
My name is Mike Roth. I'm the Deputy Chief Transportation Officer here at Indigo. I would like to take you all on a quick journey of our improved service since MV Transportation took over the paratransit and maintenance contract starting March the 1st. We have seen increased customer reliability metrics. We've seen a decrease in customer comments. Now keep in mind, this is only a 1-month data pool, if you will, and additional training initiatives for the dispatchers and the care center agents. Next slide, thank you. So far for March, March's on-time performance reached 86.08%, and that is a 5.84% increase over the prior month. Some of what can be attributed to that is staffing. MV, as you recall, RATP Dev had challenges when it came to staffing. MV Transportation has not seen the same challenges and are staffed, and we'll talk about that in a little bit here in another slide. But that all contributes to the improvement on on-time performance. Also, ongoing, the data that is being accumulated is being reviewed by MV Transportation. That data will then transform into an effective run cut. So those runs and the time periods that where we need the majority of the operators, we'll have those operators and those time points, if you will. We have peak periods, morning and afternoon. That's when our daycare centers, our adult centers, that's when we are picking up and dropping off and picking up and dropping off. So those are our very congested times. So we need to ensure that we have enough operators in the morning, enough operators in the afternoon, and then a sprinkle of operators during the other times because we're not as busy during the non-peak periods. MV also supplements that by having show or extra board operators that if, for example, an operator would call off sick, they would be able to put Johnny into that position, into that run, so that that run and the time is not lost. So there's a lot of moving pieces, but MV is making some good strides, and they are on target with April. They're sitting right now at a 91% OTP, and I look forward to seeing that improvement day over day and into the future.
Hey, Michael, in terms of, you were just talking about our kind of peak times
Yeah.
being in the afternoons and in the mornings. Can you give us kind of a sense of an average of how many calls that is, how many trips that equates to?
Yeah, I will do my best. The calls, so most of our centers are set up on subscription trips. Those do not require a call into the care center. They are automatic planned. They populate each day through our EcoLane system. During our peak time, I would estimate that we roughly probably do 200, 250 people just during those peak periods. I can definitely get you a more, a correct number. That's just
So
a
in
guess.
total, about 200
Yeah.
to 200 people per day
Yes.
that we're caring. Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, sure. All right. Next slide. Thank you. Customer comments. We have seen a reduction of 18.4% customer reduction comments over the month. We can attribute that to customer service training for operators and for the care center staff and dispatch as well. Dispatchers are responsible for operators that are in revenue service. So the dispatchers have to be able to move trips around and adjust accordingly to make sure that trips are on time. So there has to be, there is more training, if you will, that is put in the dispatcher arena to make sure that the dispatchers are actually dispatching and working with the operators to ensure timely pickups, drop-offs, and just normal service. Care center also plays a part in this because as a care agent, if I get a call, I need to be able to make sure I plug in the customer's time to where we have the availability. So according to the ADA, we can negotiate a trip an hour before and an hour after. So if at 9 o'clock I don't have availability, a bus for that time, I can let the customer know that we can get you anywhere from 8 to 9, or from 9 to 10. And that's just trip negotiation. So if the care center agencies are doing that correctly, then that also lessens the demand or extra demand on that specific hour of time. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. It's almost like it's a little bit of an art, not a science, or
It's a different skill. It is definitely a skill set that requires a lot of training and just knowing what the ADA law is. So that's where the additional training from MV Transportation is coming into play. They're really taking the time working with the care center agents to ensure that they really have good knowledge in how to effectively schedule a trip, because it's going to affect on-time performance if those trips are not scheduled effectively and efficiently.
I am sensing another deep dive topic area. So
Yes,
let's
sir.
put that one on the docket, Mike.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. And MV has really taken a key role in increased safety training as a whole. So reducing preventable accidents or incidents also impact on-time performance in a positive way. If there is a preventable accident, that takes that bus or vehicle out of service. So therefore, MV at that time would have to take one of their extra board operators, put them into a bus, and then that bus would take over the route. So sorry, I talk with my hands. By reducing the amount of accidents, that also improves on-time performance. So key initiatives that MV is working on and working through. Next slide. Thank you. And this is just a current metrics of the staffing. The red check marks just mean that they're at the goal or exceeded the goal. So currently, MV was responsible for at least 70 operators. They currently have 75 plus. So that's looking great. 18 of the 70 makeup is of People's Transit. And if you recall, that is the service I consider a body broker, so that they have individuals that are on the roster that operate our buses and trained by MV Transportation that can be called upon and scheduled as needed or in an emergency situation. Then we have 8 Silver Ride employees, which act more as like a TNC, and that would be, very similar to like the U-Serve and the InCare and the WellTrans that we have used in the past. So currently, there are enough staff, which is making a huge difference. So when you take the amount of staff, you put all the data, you analyze the data, you come up with this great run pick, you implement the run pick, you make sure you have all the operators where they need to be in the times of day. That is the recipe for success. Mechanics, they're just short 1 of the goal. Dispatchers, they're on goal with 5. Care center agents, they're a little short of 3, but currently recruiting. Utility or GLs, they're right on track. The management staff, they're on track. And then they are short 1 scheduler. Again, by being completely staffed, that all contributes into that nice orchestra, if you recall my analogy last time about having all the pieces to perform the work.
Mike, just so that I'm clear, the dispatchers are doing the scheduling?
No,
No.
that's a different position.
Okay.
So there's dispatchers and then there's schedulers. However, the schedulers are trained as backup dispatch.
Okay.
So if there's a shortage in dispatch, a scheduler can jump in. The functions are similar, but scheduling really takes a look at the dynamics of the route, making sure that there is
Following
not
all the compliance pieces.
yes. And mitigating any overscheduling, if you will, or mitigating trips that could appear late or do appear late. That's what the scheduler's function is, and they set that day's schedule the night before.
Okay. Is there comments for Mike?
Just for clarification for the, I'm sorry, can you go back 1 slide? For the operators, have 5 additional operators been hired since you put the slide together? Or is that just a typo? Are we truly at 70 operators with the goal of 75?
So the goal is 75. They're at 70 operators, but when I add in 18 for People's Transit and 8 for Silver Ride, that puts them over the goal.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? I'm more than happy to talk.
No, I appreciate the update. As you know, this is a area of focus that we've been prioritizing as a board, and I'm glad to see the progress that's been made since the transition, and we look forward to continuing to see the progress. So we'll be keeping an eye, and we look forward to the next update.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, directors.
Next up is information item I-5, which is a recap of our recent crisis awareness de-escalation training by our Director of Risk and Safety.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Brian Clem, the Director for Risk and Safety. Pretty excited to be able to present to you today and do a kind of a recap. Appreciate the highlight, I think, from the last committee meeting we had. And just bursting with excitement to share a little bit of information with you in the PowerPoint.
I was a little overzealous last meeting, so.
You know what? I was ready to jump in right there and just give a presentation. We're very excited, not only for the Ride Safe initiative, but for senior leadership to really focus on the data that we've had to emphasize the safety and security for what we need for our transit operators, as well as our community and our public. And this is just one piece of the Ride Safe initiative that we have. So we've been able to define that we wanted to emphasize a little bit more on de-escalation with the data that we saw with the increased of operator assaults and events that actually happen on our bus. So Indigo, with the leadership of Jenny, actually we reached out to a firm, Insight Strategies, who was able to put together a program tailored and a design for transit for Indigo. The training objective was develop a comprehensive understanding of mental health in public transit and to recognize crisis behavior and then respond safely, professionally, and effectively. A lot of times when people think of de-escalation, they hear the word a lot, but what does it really mean? And a lot of times people jump right in and say, hey, I need to de-escalate something. I need to do something. But there's a part that's before that, and we learned this from the training. It's about recognition. Everybody has something going on in their lives, everybody, at all levels, at all different mental states. And that affects our behavior sometimes. And what we learned from this training, what we took away from this training is how we're going to implement that through our agency to first recognize. It's about crisis awareness. You can't de-escalate somebody if they're in a crisis situation, kind of that fight or flight. So recognizing those situations and then know how to communicate with those people and being a part of that, using empathy, right? Listening, active listening. There's a lot to it. And then if that isn't successful in making that connection of trust, then that's when you start going into more of a de-escalation type, okay? Then after that could end up becoming the self-defense kind of thing. But our approach is to learn and to educate our operators and our transit workers about recognizing crisis and understanding people, active listening, and then going to the next step, which is then to de-escalate. Next, okay, perfect. So a little bit about the course description. We had a partnership with Insight Strategy. The instructor's name is Curtis Boyd, and I'm calling you out, Curtis, if you see this. Excellent instructor, 30-year law enforcement with the city of Pittsburgh. Curtis travels the country now. He actually had 10 years of transit police experience specifically with the city of Pittsburgh, their public transportation. So he is very in touch with what public transit faces day to day with the customers. And it doesn't matter if you're in New York City, you're Boston, you're LA Metro, you're Indigo. We all have people, and people all have things going on in their life. So understanding how to communicate them was part of our course description here. Understanding triggers. Everybody has triggers. I had a trigger last night when my wife cooked me something that I didn't like, and she knew that I didn't like it, but that was the trigger. But how do you respond to triggers? And that was so successful learning in the class. I know personally I've been able to use it in my own life, and I think all of our operators will be able to use that too, not only in service, but they can use that. And I think it's understanding yourself is a key part. We also want to focus on the recognition of that crisis and then de-escalation through that active listening, and also about building trust. If you respond to a situation and you're trying to just get trust, not earn trust, but just trying to, hey, you need to respect me, people were actually probably a lot smarter than sometimes we think or we give them. It's one of those things where sometimes you don't have to earn trust now. We'd like that, but it's one of those things. Sometimes you have to extend that peace offering and kind of build that trust and gain that trust in order to resolve a situation. And really, it's about increasing situation awareness for safety. One of the things we did, and it was an exercise in the class, was we asked all the people that attended, what was their favorite thing to do? And we got all kinds of answers. It was great. A lot of them would love to have a steak dinner also with Aaron Vogel, if everything worked well. But the takeaway from that is an instructor, by the end of the class, everybody had the same thing that they liked to do and that they wanted to do, enjoyed to do, and that was to breathe. Because there's nothing you can do, no answer you can give on your favorite thing to do in life. You can't do that if you can't breathe. So the focus of this is about, let's recognize these situations, let's work and build that trust, let's de-escalate, let's partner, and then we can reduce some of these events that we see. We can reduce crime, we can reduce the need for law enforcement in some cases. We can increase fare ambassadors, which is part of the Ride Safe program. By doing all that, we can increase on-time performance, reduce costs to the agency, and employee satisfaction. There's so much we can do that can hinge on some of these basic concepts with behavior, but recognizing yourself and knowing yourself. On the next slide, there were 5 key points, and I'll be quick and brief. Sorry, Jenny, I think I'm getting long-winded. 5 key elements to change behavior. And I'll just go through them real quick with you that we learned. First of all, you need to establish safety. If you can't do things safely, then you shouldn't be doing it at all. You have to make sure that you can remain safe. Don't rush the process. Sometimes before you respond, maybe take a breath. That can change the whole outcome of the conversation of everything that you're dealing with. Then build that rapport and trust. Give space to the customer. You also want to be able to identify and validate emotions. That's recognizing crisis. Put yourself in somebody else's position, right? Then let's redirect the problem and focus on a solution. Let's look to try to help the person and don't take anything personally. Then the 5th step is follow through. Positive reinforcement. If you say you're going to do something and help somebody, then it is your responsibility to help somebody. And it may just be giving somebody information, but the end goal is to be able to go home, right? That's what we want to do. We want to, somebody will be heard. Now, I think we might, maybe not, we don't. Okay, all right. We had the Public Affairs Department put together a video for us, and we can send it to you if you would like, or present it at a different time, of the scenario that we actually went through. And it's pretty good. It's very raw of what our operators actually face out there in the system. This was instructor-led. So the instructor played a part. We had Indigo people involved and played a part. And having the hands-on experience during this training, I think, was much different than what we have done in the past by just showing maybe some videos at other places or just reading something from a piece of paper. So we actually acted out these scenarios with the instructor to make sure we had a firm grasp on how that went. In the overall feedback, which is on the next slide here, was incredible. I could not have even imagined or I've ever seen feedback like this. And I think that that's a sign. First of all, 132 people from Indigo attended this training. This was some coach operators. We had mechanics. We had a couple mechanics. We had ATU senior leadership that attended. We had members of the Safety and Security Committee. We had Adarius and Jenny. They attended, and we're very grateful for that too. But out of that, the presenter made, the question was, did the presenter make people feel comfortable to communicate honestly and freely? And that was a caveat of that class, is everybody can speak freely with no retribution or anything like that. And we got a 4.9 out of 5 out of 132 people completing that survey. Outstanding. Were the scenarios and role plays helpful? 4.7 out of 5. And then how relevant was the material? 4.7 out of 5. So the survey material results were phenomenal. Some of the key words that was mentioned from feedback from our employees was they loved the personal triggers, the self-reflection, knowing a little bit about themselves and how they respond. Observing but not absorbing. That's pretty tough, right? But that's something you have to work with. Observe but not absorb. Remember that everybody is dealing with something. Remember active listening. Breathe before you respond. Sometimes that oxygen to the brain can really change what's about to come out of your mouth. And then the last thing on here that I thought was awesome from one of my coworkers was, my safety is more important than my personality. And we all have personalities. But that kind of resonated after the class, that somebody said, you know what? It's time to maybe check my personality, because I need to make sure I'm safe and my coworkers are safe. I think we've got one more slide here, which is a little bit about the future and a little bit about what currently is being done as well as the future. So first of all, the most important thing about this and our trainings moving forward and our education with safety is we must be impactful. You can't just have training to have training. It has to have meaning. It must be impactful and be useful. So with that, de-escalation continues to be a top focus. All operators receive a form of this training currently, and we're currently increasing or improving even what we have. So some of this information here, I'd like to quote from one of my coworkers, Tim Cox, which is Director of Training. 2 hours of de-escalation training continue. We are currently exceed the FTA as well as the PTASP safety regulation, which is the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan. Training focuses on real Indigo operator events, and we use camera footage that we've seen in our system to enhance that training. And then identify employee triggers, how to respond with intent. And this year's operator in-service training includes instructor-led scenarios like the video that we've got that we could share at a later time. It is all about influence versus control. And that means so much. And at this time, I'll conclude my presentation. I was very excited, still excited. Matter of fact, on this last slide, I put a little note in here. It says, Brian, you can take a deep breath now. I'll take any questions if you have any.
So Brian, you're not going to share details of how you de-escalated the dinner situation?
I'm still working on it. That's a self-reflection. It's a work in progress, but may not have to de-escalate that if we can come to an agreement. Yeah.
Seriously, would you please make sure you do share that training video with all of us?
Yes, sir, I will.
Thank you.
Brian, how often are the de-escalation trainings scheduled at this time?
Yeah, at this time, they are every training class that we have, there is a de-escalation element in that. We do classes, new hire classes for our coach operators every 2 weeks. So there's de-escalation training in those classes that start every 2 weeks throughout the year. We are also, and we have also in the past, done de-escalation in the yearly in service. Now, the yearly in service is not just new employees, but it's people that have been here throughout the years in those classifications. So that's a part of it. However, we're looking to even augment better by doing some practical, hands-on role play scenarios. We're real excited about it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian, and thanks for your presentation. I do appreciate the opportunity to have gone through Instructor Boyd's class, and I thought it was really impactful. Similarly, and I probably gave it similar scores to what you just shared. I'm glad to know that we are, utilizing and advancing this training with all of our operators and our employees. So just keep up the good work on this front. I don't think we can do enough of this.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks. Next up in our final agenda item is information item I6. Chief Operating Officer will provide us with an overview of the 2024 Transit Operations Performance Report.
Good morning, Directors. Aaron Vogel, COO Indigo. I will attempt to expedite the presentation, but I promise I cannot do it within the next minute for the time slot that we have, but I will try to be as brief as possible. This is one of my favorite reports of the year where we reflect on the previous year's performance of our services. So next slide. One of the things I want to, highlight is some of the material changes that took place in fiscal year 2020 with our services that will reflect in some downward trends that you'll see in some of our operations report, particularly those are attributed to route changes. For example, Route 39 is now replaced and enhanced, if you will, as the purple line last year, as well as improving frequency. We added a lot of additional revenue vehicle service to our routes. And so we have more service, more frequency, more hours, even though you might not see additional passengers immediately with that. And so that reduces some of our productivity. And some of the route increase changes we made were to Route 2, 25, Route 10, Route 11, and Route 30. Next slide. There, thank you. And so I would like to highlight in 2023, our total boardings was 6.7 million. In 2024, happy to report an increase in overall boardings and ridership at 6.9, which is reflected on an average daily boardings of about 500 boardings per a weekday increase, which is very exciting to see. Our overall on-time performance by route has been relatively flat over the last couple of years at 80%. And then what I would like to highlight is the data on the bottom left corner here highlighted in yellow, and that is the percentage of service, scheduled service operators. So anytime we say we're going to be at a time point or provide service to the public, 99.65% of the time we are there. We provide the service. Our service is extremely reliable. And this is an important number. This is one of the biggest key performance indicators that I track our services on and we utilize to determine if we can expand service down the road. Because a lot of times driver count goes into this. And so this is huge. So we might be late. Yes, we run late sometimes, but we're going to be there 99.65% of the time. So that's exciting to report. Next slide. In terms of productivity, our BRT lines have saw an increase of 21% from ridership versus the revenue vehicle hours. About 15% of that is Red Line itself, which is our biggest driving increase across our entire network, is predominantly from the Red Line. Next slide. For background for the newer members of the board, we actually break down our services into BRT, frequent service, basic service, and coverage service, and that is tied into the frequency of the route lines. And so frequent service is BRT is 10 to 15 minute frequency with a lot of amenities. Frequent service is 15 to 20 minute frequency. That type of service, as well as basic service and coverage service, is continuing to see an increase in frequency. Because of that, there's additional revenue vehicle hours. However, we don't see an instantaneous increase of ridership essentially with that. So the next 3 slides, you'll see a decrease in route productivity for frequent services on the 10, the 39, and the 8. We saw a decrease of 10.7%. Next slide. For our basic service, which is 30-minute frequency, we saw a reduction in 9.9% productivity. Next slide. For our coverage service, which does not actually have a board adopted standard, but it is tracked, that is service that has 60-minute frequency. We saw the lowest in decrease of ridership in terms of productivity, and that was at 2.8%. Next slide. Here's our on-time performance by our modes. On average, as mentioned, it was 80%. Our on-time performance. And I would like to highlight just the Red Line, just because it's all over the map, essentially. And 2022 was our last year of the Indigo Red Line enhancement projects, where we actually went and put our own route on detour, and we're enhancing the project and the line itself. In 2023, we saw some significant increases at 78%. And last year, we were half the year at 80% and seeing some great progress. There was about a 4-month period over last summer where we had some scheduling challenges, which brought us down as low into the 60 percentiles. So when you aggregate it across the year, it was at 74%. And what we've done for awareness, ever since we've launched the BRT lines, 3 times a year, we change the schedules. we have not had a consistent schedule methodology for red line since we started. We are constantly tinkering and modifying it, try to find a sweet spot to improve the reliability. Because there's so many different components that change with BRT going through our line. And so one of the things that we did is we were actually running hot. We talked earlier about running hot. We don't want to do that. And we were actually running hot going from CTC north to 38th and Meridian. And so we took some of those time points out, but by taking a couple minutes out, we ended up running late all the time going north. And what's happening is there's no scheduled stop allowed downtown for our operators. And there's only 3 bathroom breaks allowed for our operators, end of the line and at the transit center. So operators need to get out at the transit center, use the bathroom, which essentially made them later going northbound. So that made them a lot later going northbound more frequently. Next slide. This is the highlight, a 16% increase of MyKey electronic fare system validation, which is exciting. Over 1.4 validations took place on a system that had 6.9 boardings. So that's about 20% of all ridership has adopted MyKey. This is across the entire network, both stations, both buses and BRT and fixed route buses. I highlight that because we're certainly seeing more success on the fixed route side than the open payment system for BRT, which we'll have more conversations about down the road. Next slide. Here, I would like to highlight related to MyKey fare validation, where we're seeing the biggest increase in fare collection is through the actual fare, full fare with MyKey of 136,000 increased validations. What's really surprising was we saw a slight dip in validations from the veterans at 1.5%. And then really exciting to see with Brooke Thomas and her partnerships that she has with the schools, our Chief Development Officer, we're actually seeing more ridership increase with MyKey from the school systems. And this is also with the good work that she's done in terms of educating the schools that just because you have a pass does not mean you just walk on the bus. You still need to validate your pass like everybody else. And so that has been a big contributing factor to that increase as well. Next slide. Here, got 2 slides on paratransit. I want to just highlight, I'm going to reference FY 2023 to FY 2024 data changes. Productivity, first row, has the productivity has gone down from 1.62 to 1.45, predominantly because of the increased use of taxi to make sure that our service is reliable. So because of the driver shortages, we're augmenting that services with more taxi, which reduces the productivity. On-time performance, as Mike had mentioned, continues to increase. Last month he mentioned is close to 90%. From 2023 to 2024, we went from 67% up to 78%, making some substantial progress, as well as with our on-time performance for Be There By, which is appointment times, we've increased from 51% to 80%. Still not near our goal, but that is a significant increase. And I'm confident that we're going to get to our goal here very soon with our new provider. Our excessive late trips continue to go down from an overall average of excessive late trips on our network for paratransit in 2023. We were at 6%, went down to 3.9%, and total missed trips of 1.9% has gone down to 1.1%. And then lastly, I'll just highlight the last row, which is the number of preventable accidents has gone down from 52 to 27. I know our Director of Risk and Safety is happy to breathe and take a joyous moment on that one. Next slide. In terms of expenditures, I just want to highlight the bottom row here, which is the operating cost of 14 million in 2022 and FY 2023, the cost of 15.7 million, and then it went down to 14.9 million. So what's important to note is we're running about 15 million for operating paratransit services, and the increase that you see in 2022 and 2023, which kind of show that we have a reduction in 2024, is actually just some accounting that's happening in the mobility solutions budget, and that is particularly microtransit project that we had with VIA in 2022 and 2023. It was $1 million project that was actually being funded through the mobility service and paratransit budget here. So we actually did not reduce costs as much as I'd like to report that one. Next slide. In terms of comments, our overall comments are down 23%. We track for reference, we track our comments in totals and then we break them out by valid and invalid. So a valid concern in comment essentially is something that's undergone and been investigated and is determined to be true and unreasonable. To give you an example of an invalid comment could be someone that was running out of a gas station on Marathon, saw the bus go by. They're going to complain, the bus passed me by. Yes, the bus passed them by. They were 100 feet away at the gas station running out the door. They have to be at the actual bus stop to get picked up. So that would be an example of something that would be unvalidated or invalid. Next slide. Happy to report our near miss reporting program that we have internally has seen a 23% increase. This is employees reporting near misses, so we can really put more proactive stances in place to prevent safety items and issues. Next slide. For BRT, we have met 50% of our safety goals versus 17% in 2023, which is a 33% increase, and had 0 fatalities across the board for all modes, paratransit, fixed rail, and BRT over the last 4 years. Next slide. We have seen a reduction of 50% in terms of the fixed route safety goals not being met, and that's primarily due to preventable accidents on the fixed route network. 2024, we saw a significant amount of new operators, and with that comes more preventable accidents sometimes. Next slide. And then last but not least, paratransit risk and safety KPIs. Only half of the goals for safety were met with paratransit, primarily due to preventable maintenance inspections not being completed timely, which really drove down the data. So that is an attempt to get us back on track with time. This is a high-level overview of the 40-page report that shows all the detours that took place in 2024, in addition to a lot of more data sets, and just an overview of our system in 2024. Happy to answer any questions the committee might have.
Can I just add, you all have the full report on onboard. And
Excellent.
I know Aaron went through it fast, but the entire presentation is there too for your review.
Thanks. Any questions or comments for Aaron? Hearing none, thanks for getting us back on target. And that will conclude our agenda for today. I do want to just say appreciation from us directors to the staff. I really do appreciate the focus on safety for this particular meeting. It was helpful to see kind of all the different various components that you all are working on and how they interplay. And so that was really helpful. Our meeting will now be adjourned. Our next meeting will be held on Thursday, June 12th at 8:30 a.m. here at East Campus Boardroom. As always, recordings of this meeting are available on channel 16 and our indigo.net /board of directors website. Thanks, everyone.